Hi, good afternoon. I'm talking to Jeremy Strozer today. Jeremy, looking at your LinkedIn profile, you have a whole bunch of titles there for actor, author, even was it you get involved in startups of business as well. But I think, to be honest, because I have the same title in one respect. Your most important title is probably dad. Being a father, that's probably your most important job because I'm one too. So anything else just kind of takes a backseat to that. So, but well, just I'm going to talk to you about your podcast and your books. If you just want to have a quick, actually introduce yourself first, anyhow, and who you are and where you're from, because you're not from Ireland originally. So if you kind of give a quick overview on how you got here, how you got to
Wonderful.
Ennis. Yeah.
Will do. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, Jeremy Strozer. I'm originally from Southern California, and I spent a really long, way too long time living in the Washington, D.C. area before we were able to find our way out and make it over to Ireland. I came over for a company I used to work for, and now I am free and living here and doing it because I love it, not because the company wanted me here. So we found ourselves in Ennis during the pandemic, and it turns out we loved it, and we now live the closest we ever have to the ocean. Yeah, despite the fact that I am from Southern California, and I have found that my family just really enjoys being here. We homeschool. We have found a community who does that as well. We're all neurodivergent, and we just walk around the town, do our thing, and live our lives in a comfortable and at the right pace for us. And Ireland has suited us well.
Okay, and this what's the particular reason why you picked Ireland as a location? Oh, it's for your company you worked for.
Initially, it was for the company I worked for. They asked me if we wanted to go. Our initial response was, "Oh, we never even thought of Ireland." And the more we looked into it, the more we realized, actually, this could work well for us. So I took a 50% pay cut, but the quality of life went up at least 200%. So it was the best investment my family has ever made.
I mean, money isn't always everything either. I mean,
No,
a
not
good
at all.
quality of life is important. But let's go
Yeah.
into the to your what you're doing at the moment is the podcast and the books. It's the podcast is they are based on the books. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what I do is I write true stories that are personal experiences in war. And most of them are very short. So they're flash fiction. And the reason they're fiction is because all the people are dead. I can't interview them, so I can't make them nonfiction. And each and every story stands alone. You don't have to have read a previous story in order to enjoy the current story, and I put them all out on my podcast. I currently have about 70 episodes out. I have an unlimited supply of stories to write. I still have probably about 30 stories to record. So I don't see this ever ending, although my pace of production may vary over time. But I love creating it, and hopefully other people enjoy experiencing it.
Can you give us the title of the podcast?
Definitely. It's called Threads of the War.
Threads
And the
of
reason
the
it's yeah, the reason it's the war is because I combine World War One, World War Two, and the wars we keep fighting because of them into one overarching struggle. And what I really try to focus on is the individual experience in that war, whether it's civilian, military. And what I want to show is that war is experienced at the human level, and every human has a different experience.
Yeah.
And so I try to share that in the podcast.
Okay, and what inspired you to write and to podcast about war as a concept?
Well, originally it was because I had used to work in the US government because I had the dream that I would help solve a lot of peace issues and conflicts over the world. And I would, try to end wars. I was born and raised during the time of the wars in the Balkans, and I couldn't imagine why something like that could go on and be allowed to take place. And so I wanted to stop war. Well, I ended up for one of my experiences in the government, going and working out of the defense attaché office in Hanoi, Vietnam, where I would read an article about a child picking up something that looked like a toy or a ball and blowing themselves up. And my job there was to negotiate an agreement between the Vietnamese Ministry of Defense and the US government to help remove unexploded ordnance left over from the war that had ended 40 years earlier. And I realized that war was not this grand strategic thing that I had always thought it was. And I loved strategy and I would focus on strategy. And I'm still very big into strategy now, but it was a very human experience. And even when the war had ended almost a half a century earlier, people were still dying because of the decisions made. And I therefore wanted to move myself from that strategic level of thought to a human level of thought and say, well, what's it like for people to go through this? And I started writing these stories, and people told me, hey, you should really have a podcast with this stuff because all you're doing is creating it in written form. And I thought, wow, that's a good idea. Who could I get to do the podcast? And so I ended up realizing, well, I could. I had done a lot of improvisational acting, and I enjoy being different things, personating different characters. So I tried it, and except for, some, different gendered people that I just can't play, more often than not, I'm able to be the individuals going through that experience and to tell their story from their perspective.
Okay, because I was wondering that, all right, because I had seen you asked for a female actor for one of your podcasts. So I was wondering, are you using all actors or is it just you? Because I listened to some of you. I actually didn't realize it was you doing it all yourself. So,
well, that's good to hear.
yeah, no, I thought I was listening to one day recently, the one Zoot, and I thought it was somebody from the 40s, 1940s talking. So I thought it was probably some kind of audio clip you found somewhere, but it's good. So, but did you get a female actor to for your next project, for your next podcast?
I did get some female audio for a future episode I'm doing, but I am still looking for a really good French accent. I don't have that yet. So if you know anyone or anyone listening to this is interested in providing that French accent for me, it's there's a story that I want to put out into a podcast that's already written that I could really use really good French accent on that. So reach out, let me know.
Okay, when you say French accent, is male or female, or doesn't matter? Female.
Female, middle-aged would be ideal.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I don't know too many. I know a few French women, but they probably would be very upset when I call them middle-aged. So I won't even go there.
Well, if they could play middle-aged, they don't have to be middle-aged themselves.
Oh, very good. No, as I said, the podcasts are very interesting. So now, I had seen you were involved in cybercrime as well, or not committing cybercrime, but trying to fight cybercrime. So, can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I fell into the cybersecurity space a little bit by accident about, gosh, what's it been now? Almost 15 years ago. And I really enjoyed it because it brought together the technology plus the international security into one overarching element. I, in the course of my career since then, have supported organizations worldwide in developing the capabilities to defend themselves from both external and internal threats. And I continue to do some of that work, although not as much as I used to, because I have been focusing more on the creative arts, the podcast, the writing, and doing some advisory work on the side.
Okay, good. And well, at the moment, I mean, it's very topical because it's only yesterday was the first anniversary of course, of the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Or do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine war? I'm pretty sure you will have, but I just
I have lots of thoughts on it.
Yeah,
An unprovoked war, which is purely the decision of a single individual and those who advise that individual on a foreign country, by which tens of millions of people have suffered in Ukraine itself, not to mention worldwide in terms of hunger or access to energy. And all of this could be ended if one person simply makes the decision not to try to go take over another country.
yeah, it's amazing.
And not to try to steal from others.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's it. That's is probably this is the simplest way of putting it, and the most truest way as well. And it's kind of typical, or I won't even call it ironic, but today is the anniversary. Let me in 1991, February 25th, 1991 is when the Warsaw Pact disbanded. So, and that's
oh really?
so I have a feeling that maybe that person you were talking about, we all know who he is, but just in case, you never know. It's probably wants that whole Warsaw Pact back in his old state. So I think that's why he kind of went into the Ukraine as well. That's probably part of it. So yeah, I mean, it's sad. But me having said that, I'm sure there's going to be great stories written about this. Uh, maybe it would have been better if there wouldn't be. That would have never been in the situation. But so yeah,
I've met many people in particularly refugees from Ukraine here in Ireland, and I've talked with them about sharing their stories. And I didn't ask them to. I've just simply, talked with them about the idea of it. Some of them are very keen on it. Some of them do not want to yet, or maybe ever. But one of the things I haven't done is try to write those stories yet, because it's an ongoing thing and I don't want to take away from their experience unless they invite me to create it for them or with them. So that's been something I've kind of held back on, even though there's a ton that could be shared here and I would love to share it. It's also very close to my heart right now, which is hard to write about. Whereas World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they're a little easier for me to write about just because they're farther away. Whereas I'm not living them every day. Whereas the war in Ukraine, every day, there's, you learn more.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's still a link though between the current war, Ukrainian war, and even World War II, and the ideology behind it is more or less the same as the ideology behind World War II to an extent. So
it is empire building.
Yeah. We'll hope that will end soon. But yeah, it was good talking to you, Jeremy. And if you don't mind, we might have a chat again in the near future.
I would love that.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be able to stay as long in Ireland as you want to. So good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for this. Goodbye.